So, okay, so really happy to be here today with you. Tasha explained last week everything related to the problem definition and the intervention plan. So with me today, we're gonna be talking about the social marketing plan, okay? And if you have any questions, I would prefer the questions to be asked at the end. So, we have a very short time, so I'd rather use this time properly for explaining and taking you through the steps required for the social marketing plan, okay? Guys, okay. So let's start here. Yep. So you're seeing my screen, right? Okay, perfect. Perfect. Okay, guys. So first of all, I want to start by explaining what social marketing is. My students here, they know marketing a lot, but maybe they are not very familiar with social marketing, and maybe you aren't either. So social marketing is a marketing strategy that applies commercial marketing principles into social issues or social interventions. So what we want to do with social marketing is to be able to modify, control, recognize, or make people aware of social problems, okay? So I'd say that the most important or the most, let's say, daring activity or principle of social marketing is to make people do things, okay? But those things we want them to do should be in favor of society, in favor of their own welfare, okay, or social welfare. So social marketing uses those commercial principles. Sometimes we think that marketing is all about selling things, but we marketers consider marketing or the discipline of marketing as how can we use tools or how can we use strategies to make people live better lives, okay? And most of it is targeted to products and services that we buy, but also we can target those services or those products to make people live better lives for I mean, like, using not products that are marketed through a price, but maybe just for example, if we make advertising for cigarette to reduce the cigarette consumption, or how to make people aware of harm reduction in drug use, etc., etc. So here we want to use those principles that my students know a lot and apply them to reduce or to change or to make aware of issues that are harmful to society, okay? So this is what social marketing is. I will be explaining step by step what we want you to do in this social marketing plan. And you have already completed some of it. Most of you, I guess, have finished the definition of the problem. So you have this big problem and you have narrowed and investigated and gathered data about it. Now you will go to the intervention plan that is due to the 28th or 29th, 28th, right? The 28th. It's due to the 28th.
Yes.
To the 28th. So here you will have these ideas on how to try to solve or try to improve the situation of the social issue, okay? So this is our task 3, the social marketing plan. This will be the final step in the development stage, okay? So basically this is where you gather everything you've done in previous tasks, where you propose in a different way what you want to achieve. So what are your behavioral goals, but what are the objectives of this plan, but also if you need some branding, if you need some product services or pricing. Yeah, so I will explain this better. So basically here you'll gather lots of a lot of information that you will use to create your page. Okay, so the plan is I want to say I don't want to say long, but it's very comprehensive, and it will require many aspects of what you want to do in your intervention. So let's say it's the intervention, but like with more details and like a plan. Yeah, so it's a plan. So let's go with the first moment here, and it is the statement of the problem or challenge. So you have already stated this problem. You have already found data, and you have already written a very comprehensive document that you'll present today, the 23rd. Yeah. But now we want you to narrow this to be just a clear statement, very short, saying what, by whom, and by when this problem is going to be addressed. Okay, so basically you need to consider what is the gap between what is happening and what you want to be happening in that specific community in terms of the problem you are talking about. Okay, so here you don't need to, this is a very simple task. You don't need to like think a lot, or you don't need to do something very difficult. It's just to narrow that big problem into a statement. Okay, short statement, and that tell us, okay, what is this, what you want to address, and not how, but what, whom, and when. Okay, so very short, because the how is the whole marketing plan. So we'll do it later. Here we have a very short example, so it works. So this is basically what Tasha and I want you to do. So in one slide, you just summarize or narrow everything that you gathered in the definition of your problem. Okay, so it has to be very concise, it has to be very straightforward, but it has also to be very attractive, because let's suppose that you are presenting this in the pitch, and it'll be this element that will draw the, I don't know, investors or whoever that might be interested in the problem or in the proposal you're making. Okay, so very short. It could be like 3 sentences, very concise, supported with data if you need it. What else? What else here? No, I think this is it. So the example, Tasha and I will upload the slides if you need them. But here we want to help the people that are going to be reading or that are going to be interested in our proposal to know what is this, what we want to do, and that the existing gap between now and the future with my intervention. Okay. Okay. Yep. There. No questions. Okay. So you have already done that. Then we have moment number 2, and you have here to outline the intervention objectives and the marketing mix. Okay, so activity, or let's say step number 2, has 3 moments: the intervention, the objectives, and the marketing mix. Okay, so the intervention, it's also a summary or a very attractive paragraph with bullet points of what your intervention is about. Okay, then the objectives. Sorry, I want just to, yeah. So first moment here is in point number 2 in your marketing plan, is to summarize a brief version of your intervention plan completed in task 2. So you just take what you delivered, you make it shorter and attractive for your marketing plan. Okay. And then you need to consider 2 aspects, or two elements here. First is your behavioral goal. So your behavioral goal is the big goal, let's say, it's the big objective. So this is the final goal of my intervention plan. Yeah. So what do I want to change? But then you might also consider some specific objectives. So those specific objectives are maybe the things you need to do or the activities you need to complete to be able to get to that final goal, okay? Or the big behavioral goal. So I want you to consider a big goal, but also specific objectives or smaller objectives that will lead you to the achievement of that goal, okay? We might consider here that all objectives are SMART, okay? So that they be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Maybe you already know this, I don't know, but it's pretty clear when we write a good objective that you have to measure that objective, yeah? That is realistic and achievable. And of course, it has to be like a yeah, like a timeline or that is time bound that you can do it in the time you propose, or you have also to state when it is going to be done. Okay, I will show you 2 examples of SMART objectives so you can use them for your plans. And then we need to consider which type of objectives are we aiming to. So are they cognitive, are they affective, or are they conative? Okay. So the cognitive objectives is when the intervention is mostly focused on learning, knowledge, and beliefs. Yeah. So here you are here with these objectives. What you want to do is to change people's ideas, or maybe give them information about that specific issue you're addressing. Yeah. So for example, in health, we use a lot of cognitive objectives. So we want to make people more conscious about cancer or about ETS, etc., etc. So they are mostly cognitive. They are not trying to change a behavior, but just people be more aware about a social issue. Okay, so you need to consider, is my objective cognitive? So, and it will help you also to know how to act in the following steps of your intervention. Okay, then the affective are more focused on feelings and emotions. So we want to make people reflect or maybe change some ideas, or yeah, or consider what the behavior they're making, or the behavior they're practicing, the impact this behavior has on other people. So if, for example, smoking, so how to make people who smoke more conscious about not smoking in near children or near adults. So it's kind of just to make people like stir feelings or emotions about this social issue you are addressing. And finally, we have the conative, and the conative is this big goal in which, yeah, you really want to change behavior. Okay, so this behavior, or sorry, this type of objectives are more difficult to gather, because interventions in this aspect really need to create this plan that will modify people behavior. Okay, so for example, modify people behavior in alcohol consumption or driving while having had alcohol, or maybe changing behaviors on child abuse, etc., etc. Okay, so depending on this, you will have to write different objectives. Okay, so more focused on making people, or on making people aware, or on making people feel some emotions about the social issue, or really changing the behaviors that we want to change, okay, that we're addressing. So here we have 2 examples of objectives. Yeah, so let's just read first. To increase the number of breast, bowel, and lung cancers diagnosed with no spread by July 2010 by 5%. So we have, it is time bound, it's measurable, because then you say if it increased or not in 5%. It's very specific, yeah. So what you want to do is to increase the number of this diagnosed, okay? So it's just examples you can use for your objectives. Okay, so that is the first part of activity number 2, or the step number 2 in the marketing plan. Then you have another moment, and is to develop your product or service, okay? So your intervention plan might need some services or some products to fix or to make people aware of the social issue you're addressing, okay? So here you really need to develop this product or service, okay? So my students who are marketing experts, they already know how to design a product, how to develop services, and they you with them need to consider what are the specific benefits that the service or product you're offering to the target audience are, okay, and how they are appealing to that specific community, or let's say target market, if we are talking in marketing terms, okay? So guys, a social marketing intervention needs to offer the target audience something that will attract them. So what is this that you're offering? What is the solution you're offering to that specific problem, okay? How can you do this? You have already researched a lot, you have read about this, you have gathered a lot of data and information. So you just consider what are the core benefits, okay, that you want the customer to receive, and that will that will give you the outline of this product, okay? So for example, thinking about harm reduction in drug users. So what is the specific product you need? Okay, so you need like a service for drug testing, or you need a service for, yeah, maybe drug testing, that is your product, or maybe you want to have like some education on this aspect. So so this is the service you're offering, like an education service. So depending on how you're going to intervene the problem, then the products or the product or the service has to be designed, okay? And then also you need to consider if there is existing services or existing products that you can modify or that you can make better. So maybe you don't have to come up with a product from scratch, but you could also use some services that already, or products that already are out there, and you could just propose some improvements to those products or services, okay? So here, okay, so this is moment number 2 of activity 2, or step 2. And then we have finally in this, so activity 2 is probably the longest section, because it has the objectives, it has the product service, and it also has the marketing mix. So when you have the product service, you already have one element of the marketing mix. So marketers use something called the marketing mix, and it's how they create the marketing strategies. They divide the strategy into 4 elements, which is the product, yeah, then the price, then the promotion, or the place, and finally the promotion, okay? So here, what we want to do is you want to affect people's behavior, to inform, to educate, service, design, or control those behaviors, okay? So as I told you, depending on the objectives, then your intervention has more to do in relation, it has more to do with informing, or with educating, or designing, or controlling the specific behaviors, okay? So here we have something called the intervention mix, but we could say it's the same as the marketing mix, okay? So you need to influence the consumers, in this case, the communities or the people affected by the social issue you were assigned, and you will design product that we already explained, but also what is the price that people have to pay for this. But price is not always a monetary idea, but also price could be considered as the cost. Okay, what is the cost that people have to pay to adopt this intervention or this product that my intervention is giving them? So I don't know, for example, if you're telling people to adopt a more or a healthier eating style, so what is the cost they have to pay? And this cost might be the sacrifice of not eating food that can be unhealthy. Yeah. So when we're talking in terms of social marketing, price is not always monetary. It could be monetary as well, because you're designing a product or a service that people maybe have to pay for. But I don't think it's the case of all of our plans or interventions. So here I want you to think as the price, as what is the price that people are paying? What is the cost or the sacrifice that people pay to be able to modify, yeah, or to change the behavior that is considered harmful to society. Yeah, if we talk it if we discuss it in maybe in terms of like environmental issues, it's kind of simpler. Yeah, because if you are making something that is uh, bad to the environment, then the cost of changing or the cost of my intervention is not doing it anymore. But when you don't do this that is harmful to the environment, then you need to look for new alternatives. Okay, so maybe that will require more time for you, or to learn new things, or to etc etc. So in this case, what is the price people are paying? What is the sacrifice they have to make in order to change the behavior and to adopt the intervention that I'm proposing? Okay, so that is in terms of price. Okay, but also we could we need to consider the place. Okay, so the place is one possibility, is to consider where it is happening. Yeah, where. So where is a specific place or a physical place? But mostly when we talk about place is is we are talking about convenience. Okay, so what is the convenient moment? What is the convenient place for people to know about my intervention? Or again, if I consider the drug testing service, so where is a specific place, or if it's going to be door-to-door service, etc., etc. So here you consider what is the most convenient way for my users to get, yeah, the product or service that I'm offering. And finally, we have promotion. And in this case, promotion has to do with communication. So we are going to communicate the benefits, okay, and the impacts and the rules, if you have, of your service. So how will this happen? How will people know about what I'm offering? Yeah, how will this impact their lives? Okay, or the lives of the community. So promotion is a very broad aspect in social marketing. Maybe here you don't have to be so specific. It's just to be able to communicate how you will communicate. Sorry, so the specific plans and benefits and impacts and requirements and rules that people have to adopt if they want to be part of my intervention. Okay, and this has to do a lot with branding and positioning. So branding is, most of you know that branding is putting a brand on something. Okay, so the strategies used for branding a product or a service, but in this case, as you are branding an intervention, or you are branding uh, a movement, let's say, or branding an idea, then you need to consider if branding is necessary and how you will brand. Okay, Why? Because you need to provide a symbol for consumers to know what you're doing, okay? But also you need to create like an identity for your service or for your product or for your movement, if it is. And these people, and this way people can relate more and have like a general idea of what you're offering, okay? So they have like this um, uh, I don't know, like this interpretation of what we want to achieve with our intervention, okay? And then maybe also we use branding to position in people's mind. So if we have different services or products doing the same thing in the market, then branding help us to position, okay? But I don't think it's our case. Maybe we just want to be in people's mind. It's not necessary to be on top of the mind or to be competing against different other social services out there. Okay, so here in this branding and positioning, maybe is when you consider to create a logo, to create a slogan, to choose a color palette, or to have certain like identity objects that will help you be recognized and be positioned in people's mind. Okay, so are we are we doing okay with time?
We're right at the 30, we're right at 2:30 or 4:30.
Okay,
So we have about
yeah,
25 minutes left, but this is all
okay,
valuable information. So you do what you will.
okay, okay. And then we have moment or step number 4 and step number 5. I don't want to be very specific here because everything is detailed. I will show you later in the task. So I'll show you, and then we have the template also that you could use to complete your marketing plan better. Okay, so of course you need some resources, you need some assets to complete all those activities that you proposed. So here, what I want you to do is just to maybe scan the things you need and make like a resource audit. So this is what we need, okay? We need this, we need this, we need this, but also consider what is out there. What are the services? What are the products that you could use? For example, government services that already exist, or maybe some international organisms, and they are out there. So you don't need to start everything from scratch, but there are things you could use, okay? And then those assets, those resources that already exist could leverage your intervention plan, and then you could just propose improvements to the resources that are out there, okay? But no need to be very specific. It's just scan and consider human resources, financial resources, physical resources, systems, intangibles, and some relationships as well, okay? So here is about not only physical things, but also people that you need and the relationships with these people, okay? And software and anything related to the assets, okay? And a second part of step number 4 is to assess risk. So basically, what are the possible risks that could arise when you intervene in the society, okay? So here are some types of risks: technical, financial, social, political, reputational. So for example, if there is a change in some legislation, or if then some like natural problem or some political problem happens in that specific country. So, Colombia and the US are having now a strong diplomatic crisis. So those are the risks that we are talking about. So that is a political risk. So the US decided to cut all subsidies to Colombia, so that's a big risk. Okay, so maybe now if we want to have those intervention plans running, it'll be almost impossible because at the moment we are not having any, let's say, diplomatic or yeah, diplomatic relations. So those are the risks that I'm talking about here. So you need to consider this. And finally, just to be short about this, monitoring, evaluation, implementation, basically what you need to do in this specific activity or step is to define what are the indicators, okay, to be measured. So we want to do this by this time. We want to have completed this. We want to have impacted 1,000 people by this time. So how can you know that your intervention is going to work, okay? Because you have a lot of indicators, and as the project develops and yeah, activities are completed, then this is like a kind of a checklist of the things that will tell you that your intervention is going to be good, okay? Because when we are in anything related to business, you know, we have to compare baseline with progress, okay? So are we making progress? Are we not? Because if we aren't, then we need to change our plan, okay? So now, if you have questions, I'm very happy to answer. And in the meantime, I will show you the social marketing. Here is it. The social marketing template, where everything you need to complete related to this task is outlined. So let's see here. When you go to the week of November 3rd, you have the task 3 where you have to deliver the marketing plan. So everything is in here. So all the information that it is in here, it's also in the template that I already upload. Oh, sorry, it's home. So yeah, so week November 3rd, 7, you have the template. You just can see it here. So here. So here's everything you need to do, okay? So task 3 overview, the objective. So slide number 1 is the statement of the problem, what you have to do. If you need more information, you can click here. Activity number 2, intervention, objectives, and market mix. So here you just put your objectives. In this slide, you will describe your product or service. And in this one, your marketing mix. Yeah. If you need more information, there is links. I made sure to have in every slide the output, what is expected from you. Okay. So clearly defined description of the product or service you're recommending. And here they will, I mean, if you have questions, or you just can click here and it will take you to a website with examples or tips or information. Okay, so here the market mix, the branding and position strategy also here. So what is expected, a branding report. So very short, very concise, the branding strategies, resources and assets needed. Okay, and monitoring and evaluation. So this is everything that is needed from you to be here in the template. Okay, you just make it attractive, interesting, and you know, like if you're using branding, use all the branding strategy, the logos, the palettes into the presentation, or and also in the pitch that we will just discuss later. Okay, so now if there are questions. Guys, clear? Okay, what do you have to do? Long, short, easy?